Hello and welcome to EBC TV. My name's James, and in today's session I'm joined by the amazing Jeff Day. Jeff, welcome back onto EBC TV. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Tell me a tiny bit about what you do and who you work for.
Yeah, fine. So I run my own financial advisory firm, Wilcox Day Wealth Management, and we help people understand what they're on track for and will they have enough to have the lifestyle they'd like. All based around you define goals, and then we help you understand what you need to do to get there.
Okay, and how did you get from where you started in your career to here?
Oh, that's going to be a long story, but interestingly, I did a lot of work in your space in employee benefits in the past, and I decided I wanted to transition into doing a lot more with individuals rather than companies, and partly because I'd spent a lot of time doing financial education, a lot of what you do and do brilliantly. And I often found that what I was missing is that sort of final piece of the jigsaw, which is then helping somebody with that last bit of advice to make sure they've got a plan.
Yeah.
And that's why I transitioned.
Okay. Brilliant, because actually we have a number of guests on this show, as you know, and some of them are designed for people who are going to go and get free guidance.
Yep.
But our particular session today is targeted at people who actually want to go that step further and maybe get a bit of advice.
Yeah.
So, why is it better to have a financial plan instead of just reacting to money problems when they happen?
Well, there's a few things. And I think the first thing you need to do is figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is nobody wants to be categorized. But from my experience, there's four types of people when you start a conversation.
Yeah.
There's those that don't have enough. And that's okay. As long as we have time, we can put in a plan.
Yeah.
There's those that have too much. Now, that might be people's parents, where they're worried about inheritance tax.
Yeah.
There's the magical, mythical unicorn. They're just right. They're going to run out of money on the day that they die.
Okay.
Now,
they don't exist, right?
Exactly, because we don't know when we're going to die. And the final one are they don't know. They might have an idea, but they're not 100% sure. Now, that unsure bit creates anxiety. And what it does is when the world changes around us, we make knee-jerk decisions trying to figure out, well, actually, how do I adapt to today? But if you have a solid plan and you know, well, maybe I don't have enough, then you decide, well, I can't afford to save right now, but I know later on I might need to put my foot on the accelerator to close that gap. And will I be okay? So I think it's really important to have a plan, because then it helps you to steer you through the uncertainty that's created. And even though you might be in a position of not having enough, once we've defined that, that's okay, because it's better than being in the unsure camp and then constantly worried of, actually, do I have a plan? Will I be all right? Will I have the lifestyle I'd like?
I get the sense that most people think they don't have enough and probably don't have it within them to turn that ship around. So how do you cope with those people?
Yeah. It's funny, because some people do think they have enough, and then when you ask them about their lifestyle and what they'd like, you then turn around and say, you don't. So
okay.
It really is down to the individual, because one of the first questions we're asked, and probably you're asked all the time in financial education, is how much do I need in my pot?
Yeah.
And you've just got to strip it all back to say, don't know. What do you want to do with your life?
Yeah.
And actually, once you know what you want to do with your life, then you have a better chance of saying, well, how much do you need in your pot? And if people have a very mild aspiration, where maybe they want to do a bit of nannying and poppying of grandkids,
Yeah.
they want to do a bit of gardening, they don't need to save as much.
Yeah.
If they have grand ambitions to do all the travel and see everything on their bucket list they never got a chance to do when they were working, they're going to have to save.
Yeah.
And so that's the bit of where people feel they might not have enough. They might find they're in a brilliant position and can retire early. I love those conversations.
Yeah.
I don't like the ones where people think I'm going to retire in the next couple of years. And you say, well, are you willing to compromise on the lifestyle you thought you were going to have?
Yeah.
Because the numbers don't stack up. So the earlier you have a plan, the better chance you have of being in control of your future.
But what do you do with the people where they don't have enough and they think, but I can't do anything about it? Where am I going to find the extra money to do it? What changes can I effectively make, and how do I do it?
And this is where I think some of the stuff you guys do is brilliant. It's that constant financial education. It's finding ways that you can save money. A perfect example is I'm very shrewd with it. Every year I review my suppliers and I see if I can cut costs.
Yeah.
But we had one of our telly boxes not working.
Okay.
And we haven't actually contacted the company for 6 months.
Right.
So we've realized, well, we do enough of the streaming. Why are we paying for a subscription for a telly box? So we've now just cut it.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, we've then changed to a much cheaper internet supplier.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably going to save us in realms of 50 quid a month.
Yeah. Great.
And it's only because we were too lazy to figure out, could we survive without these things we think we need?
Yeah.
And so a big exercise for anybody in that, I don't think I can save, is really working through, but what is it you really need? Stripping out the unnecessary waste. And we're all filled with unnecessary waste.
Yeah.
There's so much scope creep in our finances because it's just nice and easy to spend money.
Yeah. It is.
And you'll find you can take control, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to park it for 5 years if you're paying for nursery fees and everything else. Saving and getting on the property ladder is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
So sometimes you think, well, I'd have to then accelerate later on. But by having that plan, you at least feel like you're not treading water or going backwards. You at least know you've got a strategy. And that helps with the anxiety that so many of us feel around money.
Well, I'm really glad you mentioned the word anxiety, because I was going to say, how much does it soften levels of anxiety for people to have an effective plan that's working?
Oh, it's massive. A prime example is if you didn't know where you were, and let's say you lost a job,
Yeah.
then you'd suddenly really worry and panic. But if you knew, well, actually, I've got a good basics of foundation and making my auto-enrollment regular contributions, I'm going to be there or thereabouts to have enough. Immediately you can get rid of that anxiety to say, well, I can't afford to save more.
Yeah.
Even if you know you don't have enough, then we just have to figure out how we make some changes. So life, as we know it, is all about compromise.
Yeah.
You compromise your time, you compromise your money, you compromise the things you want to do because you don't have enough time, you don't have enough holidays, or your kids' plays are there, so you have to give up on the trip that you wanted to do, whatever it is. And you have to figure out, where do you compromise and how do you compromise as you go through life?
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to give up on those things that we think we need, but we really don't.
Yeah. So it's the wants versus needs versus can cope with not having, that sort of debate. So if I was putting together a plan for myself, obviously Take Advice would be a good place to start. But what would be the constituent parts of a really good plan?
Yeah. So the first thing that we try and do with everybody is define the goals.
Yeah.
And this is something I encourage everybody to do. Grab a bottle of wine and sit down if you've got a partner, or just chat to yourself.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you. And work through your goals across career, property, lifestyle, and family.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is career. Do I anticipate that I'm going to be on a trajectory where my income over time is going to increase? Or have I hit a ceiling? So then you help understand, well, what does that mean for you financially?
Yeah.
Property. Are you going to downsize? Are you going to do any major projects? Well, you might need money for that, or if you're going to upsize. Lifestyle, that's a critical one. And the biggest tumbleweed moment we get in any financial advice session is the question I ask clients is, if you're to retire tomorrow and you've gotten shot of the kids and they're no longer a financial liability and you've cleared the mortgage, how much do you need per month to have the lifestyle you'd like?
Yeah.
Cover your bills, do what you want, get in your travel. Now, you have to work through that number, because by having that number, then you can work through, how much do I need in my pot when I come to my retirement age, whatever that may be,
Yeah.
to have the lifestyle you'd like.
That's a really, really brilliant point you're making, because I think a lot of people don't realise how much money they'll need when they stop work.
Yep.
And I often say, well, the mortgage will have gone, hopefully not for everybody, but hopefully will have gone if you've got your planning right. And you won't be spending money going to work anymore, right? And so that will save you chunks of cash that you're used to spending. Most people are dropping 4 or 5 quid a day on a coffee or a croissant.
Exactly.
So that all starts to add up. You hopefully will have cleared all your other niggling, annoying little debts around the edges. And you alluded it to then. I say it slightly different to you. Your kids will have properly sodded off financially.
Yeah.
And we don't want them to properly sod off totally, because we want them to come home, visit, warm family hugs, family occasions, and bring grandchildren.
Yeah.
I'd like my children to still do that, but I want them to properly sod off financially, because I've been backing them for 30 years nearly. And so with all of that gone, how much do we actually need to live on in retirement at a base level, and then what do we need on top? This is what we're talking about, right?
It is. And everybody's different.
Yeah.
And I laugh because there's a person that I respect massively. He was an ex-boss of mine, did a similar job to what you do and what I do. And when he retired, I asked him the question is, what is the biggest thing you wish you explained to people that you had thought about?
Yeah.
And his comment was, the fact that when I take my adult kids out, I can still be the one that affords to buy lunch.
Yeah.
And for him, he didn't want the big travel. He lives in Wales. He has a lovely lifestyle. But for him, the most important thing is he can still be the parent that can afford to fund dinner or lunch out with his kids when he gets time to spend with them.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's just made my heart skip an extra beat there, because my dad's 89 and he still, if we go out, so, you know, I'm nearly 60, my brother's 65, my other brother's 63, my sister's 61, so I'm the youngest of four. If we're all out together, my dad will insist on paying.
Yep.
And he's 89.
But I then have some other ones where there's a chap who I just met with this week. He has that mentality, but I've actually had to ask for some time with the family to say, can you please ask your dad to stop being as generous?
Yeah.
Because there's a real risk he's going to run out of money.
Yeah.
And he's not emotionally ready to downsize yet because he still wants to be in the family home. But he's only got about 4 years left of money there.
Yeah.
And so, especially with his age profile, if he moves into care, then the family home, if he can't afford to stay there, will ultimately go to care home fees.
Yeah.
So we're having this real tough conversation. So he's run out to do the stuff that he really wants to do.
Yeah.
But actually, the cost of him running out to then potentially, if care comes along, means that the legacy he's going to leave for his kids is going to be pennies on the pound compared to what it is now. So it's really tough to get it right. And that's why you need this constantly evolving financial plan, because life isn't linear. Things change.
No. Well, on that subject, I was going to ask about risk.
Yep.
So a lot of people want high returns, but they don't want to take risk. Right. So we all know that there's a correlation between risk and reward.
Yeah.
So how do you get around the risk conversation with individuals, and so that they are comfortable with the risk they're taking for the plan or plans that they've got, and how that might differ?
I'm smiling because I kind of worried you were going to ask me that question. And my answer is completely against what the FCA, our regulatory body, believes.
Okay, good. I'm really happy about that. Let's down with the FCA. Let's just talk properly.
Yeah. So the reason I say that is when we talk risk, I am required to say that if you want a low risk plan, you need to put your money in cash.
Yeah.
Now, the reality is from 2008 until 2023, money in a bank account never kept up with inflation.
So you're losing money each year?
Every year. Every year, your money was getting eroded by inflation. Yet I was required to say that was your low risk plan, even though you're guaranteeing a loss.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't feel right for me.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
I know. But for us as individuals, because it's got no ups and downs, that's why it's classed as lower volatility. So the phraseology that is used in our industry is wrong, in my view.
Yeah.
Because you're guaranteeing a loss. That should be classed as a higher risk, but it's a lower volatility. Because if you ever look at the graph, it's nice and straight.
Straight line.
Exactly.
So risk and volatility are two different things, right?
They are in my view, but not so much the way we're forced to cater to the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's why I have an issue. But hopefully the FCA isn't watching. The second bit is if you look at the stock market, sometimes it's this idea of this big scary stock market that people are fearful of. Now, the reality is we're all dripping in the stock market every single day.
Yeah.
We are dripping in it. My watch is on the stock market. My phone's on the stock market. The credit card I bought to get my train travel today is on the stock market. The car I drove to the station is in the stock market. And their whole responsibility for investors is to take your money, put it in their bank account, and generate a profit for the people that have invested in the company.
Yeah.
So if you're not investing, you're actually just giving the returns to everybody else that's an investor. So all of us are dripping in the stock market every day. The key is to try and find good companies that actually have a long-term growth trajectory. And over a longer term, when risk typically outperforms than things like cash, that's great. So it's about getting the balance right. And if you look at something, so in today's crazy world we're dealing with, and it is a crazy world right now, some announcements might have come out by the time we finish this call, and the markets are down by 10% because
Absolutely. Trump's done something crazy and we're all terrified.
Exactly. So if it's for short term, you have to keep your money in cash, because actually you don't want to, what's an example? If you were due to remortgage at the end of this year and you came to me today with £10,000 to invest, you said, well, I might want to put it against my mortgage. Do you know what? I tell you to put it in cash.
Yeah.
Because actually the inflation erosion isn't going to be for decades. It's
Just
a short
for a few
term.
months. Yeah.
Yeah. If the markets fell by 10% in that short period of time, we don't have time for recovery. And so you know that you have 10 grand put aside to hopefully reduce your mortgage when you come to remortgage. If you told me this was for retirement and you're 40 years old, well, that might be invested for 25 years.
Yeah.
I kind of, being flippant, don't really care if it drops 10% this year, because do you know what? In that 25 years, you're going to see the market go up and down 5 to 10 times.
Yeah.
We've lived in exceptional periods since 2020. Since 2020 to now, we've had 3 major corrections in the stock market: COVID, Ukraine and Russia, and Trump.
Yeah.
None of us could see those coming.
No.
Yeah. Normally get 1 major correction in a decade. We've had 3 in 5 years. But the stock market, even with that, the global stock market, a collection of them, has done just shy of 40% in that 5-year period.
Yeah.
That's an 8% average return.
Yeah.
But it's been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So if you're in a short term, you can't afford to take risk, or you can't afford volatility, the key
Yes.
differentiator there.
Yes.
You can't afford a fall. If you've got a long term, then actually you can afford the falls and drips that'll happen. And actually, by doing things like paying in your company pension, for example, and making a regular payment, I know you love the phrase pound cost averaging.
Pound cost averaging,
Yep.
get it in monthly.
Exactly. When the market falls, you're buying things cheaper. So you're actually taking out some volatility by doing that each month. So always come back to risk. What's my duration? And the phrase to remember, it's about time in, not timing.
Time in, not timing.
Nobody can time the market. Nobody knows what Donald Trump is going to do next.
Apart from Donald Trump and his mates.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can't time when things are going to change, but you can think about time in.
Yeah.
And you think, well, actually, if I've got 10 years here, can I afford to take more volatility to try and get that better return? Whereas if I don't have the time in, I can't afford the volatility. So I want to move down the risk spectrum.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key thing for all of us to remember is think about, if I need it in the next year, low volatility, low risk. If I need it in the next 5 years, think medium. If I don't need it for longer, then you can afford to take more risk.
Good stuff. How do you square that off if you're advising a couple where one person's risk attitude and appetite is different to another's?
Yeah. It becomes a comical conversation.
Okay.
And what we try and do is we look at everything in the round. So we might say, well, with your pensions, again, because you've got the time in,
Yeah.
then actually let's take a little bit more volatility to try and get that long-term return, but making sure we've got a bit of a balanced portfolio so you're comfortable with having a bit of money in cash. So a good example there is, let's say you've got a husband and wife, one of them doesn't have the risk appetite. They're going to want to have a 3, 6, 12-month emergency cash buffer.
Yeah.
So what we then do is say, well, you have a bit more of the cash available and maybe use cash ISAs for the person that's got more of a less appetite for volatility. And for the other partner, then we'd say, well, actually, you've got more of an appetite. You are comfortable watching the stock market fall sometimes. Yeah. And as a consequence, then let's actually use things like stocks and share sizes for you. And we'll put everything in the round so we can get the right balance. So if suddenly the market falls, they can all sleep at night.
Yeah. Love that. I've got one final question for you. Thank you so much for being on the programme. The second time on our programme.
Yeah,
I should have said that right at the beginning. So are there some ways that you can plan financially that will give you peace of mind and help you feel more in control?
I think it's the old, you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah.
And a perfect example, when I came back at the beginning, the 4 categories.
Yeah.
We want to move you from not being sure. And we're totally okay with you going into the not enough camp.
Yeah.
And then what you do is you have a plan. And if you then have it where things change in your lifestyle or things impact you, then sometimes you're forced into cutting all of the planning. And that can feel a little bit more nerve-wracking because you feel like you're going further behind. But we might then have to come back to is saying, well, within that plan, when the kids have, as you say, got shot of the kids or got sod of the kids. I can't remember, shot or sod.
When the kids have properly financially sodded off.
Sodded off, that's the one. Then you might say, well, actually, you now have the time to really save aggressively to play catch up.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, you just retire 5 years later.
Yeah.
Now, none of us like to think about that, but what you can do is by just having that ability to manage the plan as we go forward, we can take away the nervousness, we can take away the anxiety, we can have a future to look forward to and give people the confidence. But it's really tough because sometimes for people, they just don't have the ability to save today. And I don't know, have you ever talked to your listeners about the impact of a couple retiring a few years early?
No. So feel free to share. We've got time.
Oh, perfect. This is a big one for me, and it's something that nobody ever educates about in terms of education or whatever else. Let's say you wanted to retire at 65.
Yeah.
And then you approached me and said, oh, can we adjust my plan because I want to retire early. I want to retire at 60.
Yeah.
And fine. We say, well, let's adjust the plan, and we will tell you what that's going to compromise you for the income you're going to have in your future. But that 5 years has a 10-year impact because you've got 5 more years drawing money out of your savings and you've got 5 years less saving.
Okay.
So one of the best instruments ever to help you if you're in that not enough camp is look at your retirement date.
Yeah.
And the reason is if you delay retirement for 2 years, you've got 2 years more saving and you've got 2 years less drawing an income.
So it's got a 4-year impact.
It's got a 4-year impact.
Okay.
And sometimes if we can't afford to save, the biggest flexibility structure we've got in there is just adjusting when you're going to retire. We do that a lot of times where somebody might have been out of work for a while and so their savings have been depleted. And we say, well, actually, we can't do anything more with the cash reserves you've got. But what if we just adjust the slider and say, well, instead of retiring at 65, we retire at 67.
Yeah.
And then the goal becomes, can we save enough to get you back down to 65? And if you have a goal, and it's every business does it, they give you targets, they give you goals, they set everything within the business. And amazingly, that's what you strive for. And often it's hit. You have to have a goal. You have to have a plan because then you at least know what you're working towards. And then you can make those compromise choices. So do we spend £15,000 on an amazing holiday, or do we spend £5,000 on a brilliant holiday and have £10,000 more to save because we've been in a bad financial position? Do you know what? You're probably going to have just as good a time on a $5,000 holiday. You're just not going to be in maybe as nice of a hotel, but you're still going to have a good time. So get your priorities straight.
Love that. So as an old punk rocker that I am, I used to love a band. I still love a band called The Damned, and they had Captain Sensible playing guitar. And he did a comedy song called Happy Talk. But one of the lines in it is, you've got to have a dream, because if you don't have a dream, how can you have a dream come true?
Yeah.
I love that line. That's kind of in line with what you're saying.
It is.
It's about goals, it's ambitions, it's about targets, it's about planning. Jeff, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show again. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And continue doing your good stuff. We'll have you on the TV show again, but take care, stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you again soon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done, guys. We've got a few minutes spare. I'm just wondering, the question, why should a financial plan be flexible instead of something set in stone? Did we...
We didn't. No, let's just do that.
Do that, yeah?
Okay.
I wasn't sure if I answered the last question. I kind of forgot what it was as I went on.
Don't worry. Let's just ask that question then. Okay. So Jeff, I've got another question for you then. So why should a financial plan be flexible instead of something set in stone?
I used a phrase, life's not linear.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is things are going to change.
Yeah.
You might have it where things are brilliant today, and then one of you loses a job. Or actually, I'll give a real live example. So a client of mine, an enviable position many of us would like. He is a CFO of a company, so chief financial officer. He's doing very well. Single income family. His whole goal has been to plan to retire at 55. And he wants a year worth of cash available to him in case he loses a job. So enviable position for most of us. Aggressive saver, all those sorts of things. But they've had children and they've now realized that one of them isn't probably going to succeed in state school.
Okay.
So he's now approached me to say, well, can we afford to do private And if we do private, we're going to do it for the second one because we want our kids to go through the same education system. So out of nowhere, his plan has been decimated, not because of financial hardship, but because of aspirations of what he wants to give to his family. So we've adjusted the plan, and we've identified that actually it's going to cause him not to retire at 55, but it's likely to cause him to retire at 60. Again, not a bad position to be in, but that will still have him having the income that him and his family would like in retirement. The bit that's uncertain for him now, though, is he's going to go from a wonderfully financially secure position to having this anchor on the back of his neck or monkey on his shoulder, whatever you want to call it, that if he was to lose his job and be out of work for an extended period of time, the fear and anxiety of not being able to afford school fees is going to hurt him differently.
Yeah.
So we've now adjusted to say, well, let's not use pensions as much for investments. Let's now use more ISAs because they're more liquid, but we're not being as tax efficient. Now, he might find that they put the one child in and that's everything they need.
Yeah.
And it's given the extra support for their child to feel what they want to feel they're going to give the child the success they'd like. But they might find it doesn't work. And they might say, well, actually, do we put them back in state school? And next thing you know, we're back to a 55 plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the most important thing behind that is, as a family, they've had a conversation on the impacts of the choice. And so if he loses a job and now they've got that fear of money and he wants to cut all his expenditure, the family has agreed to say, but our priority is our kids' education over our lifestyle, over retiring early. And so they will now be able to navigate everything that's thrown at them without relationship issues, without marital spats on money, because they've collectively agreed this is what we want and we want to put our kids at front and center.
Yeah.
Which 2 years ago, none of this was in their plan.
Yeah.
They actually were completely anti any sort of private education, but they've got really concerned that it's the only way they think they can give their child what they need because of special circumstances.
Well, that's fascinating. It's a great response. And it actually goes to show that whatever plan you've got, always be prepared for this thing called life.
Life gets in the way.
Well, and life, as you said, isn't linear. It's not a straight line. So there are bumps in the road, and life will give you a moment where you need to revisit your plan. So flexibility is super key in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff. Great answer, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you.